Okay. So let's start talking about masteries now. We've switched gears. We're now talking about masteries in this game. There's two main AD carry pages, both of which I think should actually run the Feast Mastery. I think it's a very effective mastery, and you should be running it. So one is AD normal. This is I'm Caitlyn, I'm Vayne. You know, I don't care about my spell damage. I have spells, they matter, but I can't use Blade and Spell Weaving, because I'm not going to, like, auto-attack you, land a Q. It's not all that likely. Or similarly, I'm not going to hit spells on you and then keep auto-attacking, which means it's very, very straightforward. You go straight down the line, you get the Frenzy Mastery for critical hits, grant attack speed, you just do this thing, right? And you do Executioner because it's a very good mastery, and you get Butcher and Feast. It's just strong, it's worth getting, it's very, very good. This gives you a lot of sustain in the lane, it's very valuable. Basically, if you still run 2 Lifesteal Quints and you run Feast, your sustain is about the same. If you're now running Feast, you're going to feel a lot better than you were before. If you're not running Lifesteal Quints, then you're going to get a little bit more out of this. It's just, you know, slightly more effective, it's cool stuff. Here's a general page. You can drop a point for Dangerous Game. Most people drop a point in the bonus attack damage. If you want to do this, Dangerous Game is pretty effective if you think you're going to be in a lot of scrapping fights where you want to get your stats back up partway through. I mean, 1.5% bonus AD is worth up to like 4.5 damage by the very, very, very end of the game. Like if you're Bloodthirster, Last Whisper, Infinity Edge, and a Red Elixir, you're hitting like 230 bonus AD, something like that, which is pretty meaningful, right? You actually get even more of that from your other runes and masteries, so, you know, there's some decent damage there. It's 3.5, 4 damage by the end game, but Dangerous Game can, of course, be very useful as well. I personally really like maximizing my damage output, but you could go either way. But this is the general mastery page for an AD carry. These 9 points in defense are very standard. Pretty much any champion in the game in any role would like to have these 9 points. You might get other things in addition to it, but these 9 are pretty much always effective. The main reason is, hey man, as a jungler I take 4 less damage from basic attacks and 2 less damage from anything else, right? These are very effective. This regen's pretty good. This is pretty good. As a jungler, you would actually probably want to take Tough Skin over Recovery, but this is an AD carry page, so we're not going to deal with that too much. Now, if you are a Spell Weaving champion, if you are this guy right here, oh, actually, one thing you can do, I forgot about this. You can drop a point in attack speed to get Dangerous Game. I actually do recommend this. Dropping a point out of 1.25% attack speed and getting Dangerous Game, I think is worth it for AD carries. So, FYI, this is probably really smart. Another thing you can do is actually add a point in Double-Edged Sword and drop a point out of attack speed as well. Now, the damage you take can hurt, but at the end of the day, 1.5% bonus damage, you're not likely to receive very much damage on the back end of that one. If you were just trading blows with the enemy champion in lane, then this is inferior to a point in Fury, but because you'll be last hitting minions, you'll be doing a bunch of other stuff, you will actually get a lot out of Double-Edged Sword. I think you should pretty much always take this mastery and this mastery on AD carries. Now if I'm a Spell or Blade Weaver, I basically just ditch 2 points in Warlord, and I get Spell Weaving, Blade Weaving. The main thing is these are champions like Corki or Ezreal who are going to weave in spells with a decent amount of their damage output. Lucian as well. And these are champions who actually typically buy a Trinity Force, meaning that their total AD is going to be not necessarily super high for much of the game, because they're delaying all their other damage items because of how much Triforce costs. And so the comparative deficit by getting Warlord is a bit lower, or by losing points in Warlord is a bit lower, but again, Spell and Blade Weaving is a big damage increase in the first place. Even at the end of the day, right, if I lose 3% of my bonus AD, even if that's like 9 attack damage, even if I'm losing 9 attack damage, 9 AD is not that much of my total damage output. It's just not. And I'm going to get up to 3% bonus attack damage, 3% bonus spell damage this way. It's a significant increase in my expected damage. Even if I'm a Triforce user, I'm still going to get critical strikes. This is still a good mastery to grab. This mastery is always amazing, especially on someone like Corki, who's really going to want that percent magic bend. I know some pros who actually run points in the CDR mastery instead of the attack speed, but I personally just like the attack speed. I think it's still very good. But you could make that choice yourself. I still would get Butcher and Feast. Those are the two big AD carry pages. Now for an AP carry, if you're a mage, this is the general standard page with a few exceptions that you can make. You actually can go Feast Butcher. You can do that. It will help your last hitting. You'll do 2 bonus damage. I actually know a pretty large number of pros that only run 2-point sorcery. Not all of them do it. Some do, some don't. It's up to choice. But you can run low sorcery and get Butcher Feast. This will make you better in lane. Again, this is optimally like 36 health and 12 mana a minute, which is pretty high. It's pretty good. It'll solve a lot of your sustain issues. This is worth like 1 MP5 and 3 HP5 if you last hit everything, basically. For basically 2 mastery points, right? Butcher will also help you last hit, so doesn't suck. The rest of these are pretty normal. Get AP, get more AP. And when I talked earlier about supports not getting deep in this tree, think about the deep points in the offense tree, right? Think about going more than 9 points in. Damage to low health champions, okay, maybe. 5% bonus AP is actually not that high, right? 5% bonus AP is not very much because you don't have much AP. You just don't have very much. It's 5%. It's not that high. Dangerous game. Again, you will be in combat. You will regenerate some. This could be useful. 5% of your AP into physical damage, or sorry, into bonus magic damage on hit. Again, not a very effective mastery. 5%, right? You're not gonna have much AP. Not a big deal. 6% armor magic pen. Generally speaking, you will not be doing as much damage as someone else. Like, if you look at the damage of the champions graph on like any game you ever play, largely you are not going to get much use out of this. Also, if you're not getting much flat pen, there's also some value loss here. And then again, 3% increased damage again. These are all things that multiply your damage if it was already high. Whereas if you don't have much AP, the value of 6 AP is pretty high. Right? If I'm just like a level 1 dude with no stats at all, 6 AP is pretty good. It's like a decent damage bump. If I have 800 AP already, 6 AP is not worth very much, which is why deeper in the tree, it starts to mean more. But if you're not going to get much AP, it doesn't matter much for a support. Now, again, we talk about AP mids, or an AP carry in general, right? Standard stuff right here. 3 mana per 5 seconds. There's actually some value in getting the trinket cast range, because it would allow you to trinket brushes and stuff while being outside of range of like Lee Sin Qs, for example. It doesn't come into play very much, actually. You'd be surprised how little this matters. But it will help you like trinket over walls sometimes. If you ever do go blue trinket, it's of course got more range. You can get a lot of value out of this. Also, for what it's worth, I also know some mids who drop double-edged sword and put 3 points in sorcery. It's all to taste. No one, and also I know some people who grab exposed weakness, and then they have to drop like a point in like dangerous game or something to get it. It's all the taste. It's all the choice. But this is like a general like good one for AP carry. CDR summon spells is very good. Mana regen for every 300 maximum mana, or health regen per max mana. That's okay if you're like, if you know, for example, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go flask, and I'm gonna go tier in my lane because I'm fighting like a Zed. You can do this, right? Like you could do this kind of a page where I'll rely on flask for regen. I'll use butcher and feast for regen. I'll use strength of spirit, and I'll be getting a tier for regen. Like, you can do that. You can choose to do that, but it's an efficient health regeneration point. Generally speaking, every champion's gonna end around 900-ish mana. Maybe more if they have some investments in flat mana. Meaning that at the end of the game, this point is worth 3 HP 5, and it starts the game worth about 1 HP 5. And if this is worth it for you, then you can ditch other points to do it. For me, it's not that important. 1 second off recall is pretty good as well, but I'd rather just get the mana regen. Secondary page right here. Again, if I I'm another mage type dude, but I really don't care about the mana regen and summoner spells. Maybe I'm playing Earth mode. Maybe I'm just so afraid of my lane opponent. I'm going to get harassed like hell. Maybe I'm Rumble, right? Then I'm going to do something like this. Get the standard 9 points defense. These are all very, 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 very good. I'm going to do this kind of a setup here, right? And double-edged sword is good if you're a damage dealer. If your goal is damage, this is good. If you're Renekton, I would caution against it. If you were Aurelia, I would never get double-edged sword. Because true damage will not be multiplied, and you're going to be a tank by the end game anyway. Same for Shyvana. I think it's not worth it. And in fact, if you ever want to test like what your champion does, just look at your post-game graph of damage dealt to champions and damage received. And that will tell you what kind of things you're looking at with your champion. Okay. Next up is a page for someone like Riven or Lee Sin. I think this is pretty good. You're going to weave in spells and auto attack, so Blade Weaving Spell Weaving is good. Your goal is damage, the double-edged sword is good. CDR is your most effective offensive stat of the tier 1s. You could go Feast Butcher. This will give me more regen in lane, but that said, these champions both buy lifesteal typically in their initial build, so the value of Feast goes down a little bit. Executioner is still good, Dangerous Game's good. You could choose to get that out instead of something else. Basically, I could ditch double-edged sword, or I think I could actually ditch a point in sorcery for it. I can't. No, it's too low tier. Yeah, I need too many points. Okay. Never mind. I can't ditch double-edged sword. I'm at 8 points and then 5 points. I'd have to ditch something from this tier, which I can't really do. So it's a little bit hard to get Dangerous Game, but it's not that important anyway. This could be very good for someone like Zed, though, for what it's worth. This is also a good mastery page for Zed, for what it's worth. This actually, I'll just name it because it is, but this is like a good Riven, Lee Sin, or Zed page. Also, I think you could do it with Lane Kha'Zix, although you might want to get points in here. It's up to you. Next up is a defensive support. This is I'm a tank support. This is the page I see most often used among pros with champions like Leona. They go deep enough into the utility tree to get gold for dead minions, as well as starting gold. Movement speed's a big deal. Extra health from potions and biscuits. They'll be using a lot of them. Trinket range is pretty effective as well. You could choose to not get it and get a point somewhere else if you wanted. But trinket range is good. It lets you ward brushes from farther away. It lets you ward jungle ganks from farther away. With your trinket ward specifically, it lets you sweep wards from farther away as well. You don't have to stand as far into the Baron Pit to check for wards. There's some value in this mastery, to be honest. And again, just, standard GP10 increases, And again, one thing to point out with gold quintessences is just by being this kind of deep into the mastery tree, you're already passively generating 2 gold per second, right? Your default gold generation is 2 gold per second. Another 2 gold per second here from Scavenger. Another, 5 to 10 gold per second from a GP10 item. You're realistically getting a lot of gold back. A lot of gold back, right? You're getting like, all right, sorry. This is 2 gold per second, counting this mastery. Another 2 gold per 10 here. Another 8 gold per 10 from your GP10. Adding another 3 GP10 with some quints instead of getting like 13 armor. It's just kind of greedy. You don't really need it. So keep that in mind, kind of. But you have some gold generation here with kind of low cost. Legendary Guardian's a good point if you can get to it. Like, you can forsake some of your stats. Like, this will rob you of a potion, though, which is pretty valuable. But it's like, yeah, I'll run some flat armor in the lane. I'll get, these standard block masteries. If I am, a really good CC support like Thresh, I'll get actually a pretty good value out of Oppression, because people will be slowed a lot of the time. If I'm Leona, it doesn't really matter, because if they're stunned, I'm not taking any damage from them. If I'm Singed, I care about this mastery, right? Because they'll be slowed by my goop or slowed by my poison for like all the time, but that's a very specific example. And just, general health regen when low is just a good mastery. Yeah, I could take reduce from critical strikes, that doesn't really matter. I could get +2 MR. Like, I could ditch this point and get 2 MR. It's pretty good. I think Culinary Master and Alchemist is good. I think Summoner's Insight is good. Right, these are like the generally like good, always good utility masteries, and these are generally always good defense masteries. This is like a standard defense tank support sort of setup. It's just good. This one I'll just delete. It doesn't really matter. Jungle Evelyn. This is last I checked from a pros page. It was this type of page. So instead of the default of 9 defense, you ditch 2 in recovery, put 2 in tough skin. But again, you are very much optimizing your early power. And you think about how your champion plays, right? So okay, yeah, sorcery makes a lot of sense. A bunch of flat AD and AP early game helps my jungle clear. Executioner is actually a little bit useless. It's not bad. And honestly, Eve does get to chase down people and kill them by endgame. So 5% bonus damage to guys who are low is not a bad mastery. Again, the purpose of Eve is typically damage. Hybrid Pen's a very good mastery. But Exposed Weakness is very good because I'm likely to hit most of the enemy team with my ultimate. So I give my entire team a 1% damage buff for a good long time. Because I'll hit Qs afterwards as well by being Evelyn. This is very, very strong. Eve's also a champion who could maybe get oppression here because they'll be slowed for a while. Eve's a champion you could go deeper into defense with. But at the end of the day, your goal is damage. Eve typically gets something pretty offensive. This is a jungler such as Lee Sin or Aurelia, for example, right? So even Vi, so you can see how similar the page is to this, right? The only real difference is basically these mastery points. Now that said, Butcher and Feast do work on monsters. If I wanted to ditch 2.5 CDR, I could grab these and I would be more powerful. Again, this is for a jungler whose goal is damage. Now, it will help your jungle clear speed regardless if you get double-edged sword because you'll kill 2% faster while taking 1% more damage, which is a health positive and time positive thing for you, but it will make your life more difficult once you get to the point where you are facing team fights. You may want to consider not bringing that point. You could just bring Butcher instead and get a little bit more jungle clear speed. But this is, again, a 21 offense. This is a Lee Sin, right? This is a guy who's going to be fighting a lot and dealing damage out of the jungle. This is just the rune page that I got, or a mastery page that I got from Mafa, back when someone posted all the rune mastery pages from Koreans in OGN. This is the mastery page he used. He went 20 utility on Taric. This is when Taric was broken, by the way, when he was like super OP, but it was just like heavy defense spec. You know, get some extra gold from these places, get some CDR, whatever. But you can see there's a lot of similarities, right? These masters are still there. These masters are still there. This master is still there. Just he went deeper down. But you notice that these 9 were still picked up. This page is not really used much for anymore. But this is like if you figured you're not going to take much damage in your fights, you just want to get around the map a bit quicker, right? Movement speed out of combat, movement speed in general, more cooldown reduction, right? These are all things where it's like, well, you're going to be stunned while I'm fighting. It's going to be enough. This is, again, part of this is back when Perseverance was really powerful, but this is a master page used by Watch with Jungle Olaf. CDR, good for Olaf, right? There's actually a lot of weight. Like, there's a lot of ability to go 12 to 18 points in a tree. Like, you're not going to get % bonus AD on Olaf because you're not going to buy a lot of AD. You don't really care about Hybrid Pen on Olaf because you do a lot of true damage. You don't care about Critical Strike. You do kind of care about Spell and Blade Weaving, honestly, but again, you're not going to multiply your true damage that way. But you will multiply your auto attack damage. Like, you could put points here and like ditch other stuff. But at the end of the day, Legendary Guardian's such a good skill, and Second Wind's such a good skill that you know, if you're Olaf, you probably want these points. And again, right, tough skin, block, veteran scars, all this normal stuff, pretty standard, right? Another page. This is top lane Renekton by Expression. Similar stuff to what we just saw a second ago. But instead of Legendary Guardian, he basically just went into Spell Weaving. Landing a basic attack will increase your spell damage by 1%, stacking up to 3 times. Now, the interesting thing is he did go for Double-Edged Sword, because he actually cares more about winning his lane than tanking up in a team fight. But again, CDR, right, AD, Executioner, right, he's dealing damage to his enemies. Again, you don't buy a lot of AD on Renekton. You would on someone like Riven, which is why it's used on that champion, but yeah, there's a good example. In fact, the more I think about it, a champion like Lee Sin doesn't need to go 21 points offense. Like, yes, you'll get Havoc, and yes, you'll get Hybrid Pen and whatnot, but if you went deeper into defense on Lee Sin, you would get things like Second Wind to heal back up when you're low, Perseverance to sit around in lane, you know, some extra combat stats as well. In fact, oppression would be massive because you're always going to be slowing your opponents. There's some very, and actually, I looked at some of the mastery pages used by LCS pros, and most of the top lane Lee Sins by like Inox and Zion are 21 offense, but Cruiser was actually running something like this. I forget how deep he went into like blade weaving and things like that, or if he went to dangerous game or anything, but he was like, you know, something like 14, 16. I would assume 17 for second win, but I don't know for sure. I don't remember exactly. But looking at the stats, I kind of figured that one out. So here's a support AP page. This is not necessarily the ideal page, but basically this gives you enough in the defense tree to, I think, survive the laning phase. Standard 9 defense, but I think you should always get. I think you should actually always get at least 9 defense. There's just so much health in this. Like, the first 5 is automatic, but I think you should also get the next 4 to get Veteran Scars and Juggernaut. But then you could grab Hardiness. You know, 5 armor is a lot in the laning phase. Typically, I feel like the laning phase of the bottom lane is mostly physical damage. If you're fighting like Corki Karma, maybe do that. In fact, it's probably just better. Just ditch 1.5 armor, get 2 MR instead. I think it's just the superior choice. But again, you know, the same like 13 so points in the tree here. I find it's very difficult to land auto attacks as a support with the Spell Thieves changes. I'm just going to land my spells. I'm not really going to go in. Bandit is not all that effective. But hey, extra CDR, cooldown of items, that's really, really nice. I like having that. It's pretty effective. I actually think Inspiration's a very good mastery. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think it's very strong. But if you wanted to ditch points in that, you could grab extra move speed or something. But yeah, you know, lower CDR on summoner spells is nice. You could also, you know, if you ditch 2 points in intelligence for 2 points in sorcery, that'd be useless. Intelligence is a better mastery. So I think you pretty much, you're hard pressed to get offense points here. Most pros I see don't get a lot of points in offense. Or if they did, they would do something a little bit more risky, like, yeah, like there's no good way to get the points here. It's like, okay, I can do like 14, I can do like 7, 9, 14, but that's really weak. Like, I don't want to do something like that. Something like this, I think, is reasonable. Like, I don't know for sure. Like, I'm still kind of bouncing out. I don't think anyone actually uses a page like this. But it's like, you know, there's things that are valuable down here that are pretty nice to have. You know, 3.5 CDR is still useful regardless. Like, this is far enough in the defense tree where I care. But, you know, again, if I'm like Karma or something, I might really care about oppression. This is the pair to the Cacao Jungle Elise page. He actually went for Enchanted Armor in his page because, hey, you're going to get a lot of armor MR out of runes, and you're going to get armor MR out of your actual item build by end game, so this is actually a pretty efficient point. 21 offense, basically this is the same as what the Evelyn page was, but, you know, hey, I have Executioner, hey, I have Hybrid Pen, hey, I have all these things that deal bonus damage, right? Cocoon. This doesn't do exposed weakness, but if I like land a Spiderling or something, my teammates can follow up. CDR standard, you know, Butcher Feast is good. I could choose to get that on Elise. You know, it's up to you. But again, if you're someone like Elise who's just relying on penetration and base values, Warlord and Archmage are not useful. Same goes for Evelyn. Same goes for Olaf. Same goes for Renekton. Same goes for Aurelia. Same goes for Shyvana. This is not useful in these types of champions where you're not actually getting a lot of AD and AP. This is, I made it up, this is a jungle AP page, but basically if maybe I'm Kale, maybe I'm jungle Karthus, I'll do pretty much the standard AP setups here. You could get Butcher and Feast, it wouldn't be bad. Although CDR is now a much more important part of my damage, because casting frequently is incredibly vital to clearing the jungle. But again, tough skin, standard points in defense. Mana regen's kind of nice, but with Spirit Stone at the end of the day, you don't really need the blue buff, you don't really need the mana regen. You're better off being tanky enough to survive the jungle and not get killed by an invade. This is another Jacked Mastery page. This is Score playing Ezreal way back when. He went 5% CDR and Sorcery, but otherwise you can see very standard AD stuff. Although at this point I would probably do Butcher and Feast, which means you might drop points somewhere else. But you can see that, you know, Spell Weaving, right? Score is going to land some basic attacks, and he's going to land an ultimate afterwards, maybe. It's fairly effective. This is random. This is I just want to deal a bunch of damage. I don't really care what I'm playing. This is I literally just like, this is what I'm going to put in like Earth mode, right? I don't care about this page. This is another jungle AD page. I could have had an earlier one. I guess it's a lot like this one. They're pretty the same. Basically the difference being that I'm running attack speed instead of CDR. This would be if I'm doing a low crit build, like if I'm doing Nocturne, right? If I'm doing Nocturne, I'm doing Feral Flare, Ruin King into like tanky or something. I have no crit, so I have no reason for Frenzy, but I still care about this stuff. I actually still might want Butcher and Feast, but there's nothing I really want to dodge for it because the rest of these points are so valuable. Blade Weaving, Spell Weaving actually not that important. Actually, Blade Weaving, Spell Weaving is actually pretty good for Nocturne because ultimately you're only going to land 3 spells as Nocturne anyway. You're going to land your ults, you're going to land your E, you're going to land your Q, so you're going to max out your Spell Weaving stuff, and then, heck, you have to get Spell Weaving in the first place, so why not? This is deceptively good on someone like Nocturne. Similar for Master Yi. Master Yi will land, you know, hits of basic attacks, and then will be able to land his Q for more damage. Things like that are useful. Also, keep in mind with Blade Weaving, if I Master Yi, damaging an enemy champion with a spell increases my basic attack damage, meaning that if I Alpha Strike and hit their entire team, I have now maxed Blade Weaving. One other thing to think about, a Yasuo page. Again, very similar to like an AD carry page, the difference being that I'm getting some early attack speed. I don't care about Blade Weaving because I'm not damaging with spells very much. I can damage an enemy champion with a spell a couple of times. Actually, the more I think about it, the more I might care about this because I'll have my ulti and I have my E. In fact, I think I will do that, and I'll drop a point from Warlord. I also might care about Dangerous Game, which means I drop another point from Warlord. And then my page becomes the exact same as basically Spell Weaving. Except that I'm getting more attack speed and not Butcher and Feast, which even then might be the wrong choice because I might just care about Sustain as Yasuo. And to be honest, I might just be like, you know what, my Yasuo page is going to be this. I want the Sustain, and I'm actually going to land my E and my R and, you know, do a bunch of damage that way. So, you know, learning as I go, talking about this kind of stuff. Finally, Jungle Yi. This isn't necessarily very well fleshed out. But this is the page, I believe, that was used by the guy who put his guide out there and was like, yo, dog, I'm a Diamond 1 Jungle Yi main. And it was this setup here where, again, he was so much about being opportunistic that he didn't care about defensive stats. He just wanted move speed, teleport cooldown, and potions for the first jungle clear, as well as more red buffs during the clear. And was just invested in his basic attack damage. I'm not sure if that's the way to do it, but it's a page that I saw and I wrote down. So there you go. Those are the things that I was going to say about runes and masteries. They generally work pretty well. I think they're pretty effective. So yeah, there's my thing on runes and masteries. Any questions? If you guys have any questions, let me know. I know. There might be some. I'll run this for a little bit. Yeah, it's the UTP page, basically. Yeah, Cowsep. Can you give us a spreadsheet? Yeah, I can paste stuff out there. This information will be available. I'll leave the video as a highlight. I'll try to figure out how to upload stuff to YouTube. I don't seem to be able to do that very effectively, but I'll try. Hey, Phreak, what runes and mastery would you use with a Mumu? If I were a Mumu, I would probably do something like this. So let's see. I am a tank. I would probably run tank Mumu, not AP Mumu. So I'd start out with this. Probably this, probably this. Probably not this. I care about oppression, because I would root people and take less damage that way. At least 1 point there. I think Legendary Guardian's an amazing skill, and I think Tenacious is an amazing skill. I could easily do something like 5 CDR, Exposed Weakness, early AP. This would be a reasonable Amumu Mastery page, where like the AP will help me clear a little bit. CDR is just good in general. 21 defense I think is very good. Legendary Guardian I think is an amazing, amazing mastery, and I think it should be gotten on so many champions. I actually care a lot about reinforced armor. See what I can ditch. Because I'm going to be tanking critical strikes a lot. I care about reinforced armor. Evasive I care about a little bit as well, but I don't have the points for it. Actually, tough skin, not recovery. This would be a Jungle Amumu page, I think. Basically, flat armor, reinforced armor is good. 1 point MR is just good in general because it's stats. It's 2 points of armor for 1 point. Enchanted armor is very good on a dedicated tank. Block Unyielding Veteran Scars Juggernaut is completely standard, should be picked up on every single... if you ever go at least 9 points defense, you should always get these points. They are basically mandatory. Legendary Guardian for deep defense, and again, this is just for jungle clear. I suppose it just helps my team. This would be probably an assumed jungle page for Amumu. If I went into runes, let me find one of these blank ones. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to clear out invites. My client's like lagging a little bit. I'm not sure why. I was going slow with my computer, but it's okay. Probably because I'm hovering over so many things all the time. I don't know. So let's see, what would I do with an Amumu page? Well, I actually care a fair bit about move speed. I don't know if I need to run it, but I could do move speed quints. Glyphs I would probably do, again, like, you know, a mix of MR per level. Again, my goal is to be a tank, so I care a lot about my defensive stats. I would definitely run armor seals in the jungle. The only one that I really think about is Marks. So Hybrid Pen's pretty good for Amumu because you will actually do a lot of auto attack damage in the jungle. I know one of the big ones people used to use is attack speed Marks for Amumu just to get rid of those camps faster. And actually is a clear speed increase if you do that. Attack speed Marks are very good for jungle Amumu because it'll give you more health back from Hunter's Machete. It'll give you more damage with Hunter's Machete. And you will get more total auto attack damage out of attack speed Marks than out of Hybrid Pen Marks for a significant part of the jungle. Now you do lose some damage to enemy champions by not running Hybrid Pen or Magic Pen, but generally speaking it is more important that you do well in your first couple of jungle clears, because if you think about it, right, if I have Hybrid Pen and I have like 5 Magic Pen because of it, and so I do like 3% bonus damage to champions. Yeah, I got 3% bonus damage to champions. But if you cleared the jungle a little bit faster and completed your Sunfire Cape, or was 1 level higher than you would have been otherwise, that's going to be way more than 3% more damage. Now, it's a very specific example and at a certain breakpoint, but you can see why jungle clear speed can mean way more than optimal combat runes. And it's always a battle you have to kind of wage is, you know, in what ways can I optimize clear speed versus combat stats. For AP mid, do you tend to go Hybrid Pen or only Magic Pen? When would you switch from Magic Pen to Hybrid Pen? The basic rule between Magic Pen and Hybrid Pen is, am I going to auto attack you? If you are going to auto attack a lot, or even a moderate amount, you want Hybrid Pen. If you think you're not going to almost at all, then just run Magic Pen. A champion like Fizz will actually land a fair bit of auto attacks. A champion like Orianna will land a fair bit of auto attacks. A champion like Twisted Fate will land a fair bit of auto attacks. A champion like Ziggs will land a fair bit of auto attacks. But if you're going into a matchup where you're fighting against a super passive guy, like if you're AP Janna, you're honestly, like, as weird as it sounds, even though you have the AD shield, you're not going to auto attack that much. You're going to mostly rely on your AP to wave clear. And honestly, even if you're playing Orianna, it depends what matchup you're in. Because if you're like Orianna versus Lulu, like, you don't even want to go in on that champion. You're just going to probably trade clear with that person for a long time and not trade autos very much. So Lord Zeron says, the Enchanted Armor gets you 5 extra armor if you have a 100 bonus armor. To me, it's not worth 2 points. Well, let's actually explore that real quick because I think it's worth talking about. So I can get... So would you guys agree that hardiness and resistance are pretty good masteries? For 3 points, I get 5 armor. 3 points, I get 5 MR. That's okay, right? Even for 1 point, I can get 2 of each. And almost everyone will get at least 1 point in this mastery, right? So if I put 1 point hardiness, 1 point resistance, I get 2 armor, 2 MR. If I get 2 points enchanted armor, what will it take me to get 2 armor, 2 MR? Right? If I spend the 2 points enchanted armor that I was going to spend in hardiness resistance, what would it take to get the same return? What would it take to spend these 2 points and get 2 armor, 2 MR? 40 bonus. It would take 40 bonus armor and MR each to make enchanted armor worth as many points as the first tier of hardiness resistance. Meaning if I buy an Aegis, I've already hit the MR threshold. If I just use runes in a ninja tabby, I've hit the armor threshold. It is ridiculously easy to make enchanted armor worth it. Which actually is funny because that means that in like a page like this, I should be doing that. Because it is like, because then if you go past 1 point, if you go past hardiness resistance to 1.5 bonus armor per point, then I need 5% of 30 bonus armor MR, which is even easier to get. It's incredibly efficient. It's incredibly efficient. If you guys aren't using enchanted armor, and you're someone who like buys any defense items at all, get it. Get it. I mean, you spawn the game with like +9 armor, +12 MR. You're already getting like, you know, half a point of armor for the first point. You know, like, it's pretty good. AS quints on AD carries, yes or no? It depends. If you can get away with not running lifesteal, I think they're very efficient. Aegis and Aegis are both correct pronunciations, actually. What about other tank junglers like Maokai, Rammus, Nautilus, etc.? Pretty much the same thing, actually. If you're Maokai, Nautilus, Rammus, like, you're probably going to run the exact same setup that you do here. I mean, I guess instead of Arcane Mastery... I mean, actually, this is okay for, like, Nautilus, I suppose. You could actually do something like... You do something like this for, like, Nautilus. You can go further in a defense tree, actually. You don't need to go, like, 9 points. So, like, one thing with Nautilus is his clear is pretty slow. And so Butcher is actually very effective, as is attack speed, actually, if you wanted to do something like that. Nautilus and Rammus both need help killing the individual targets. Actually, something to keep in mind. If you are a tank jungler and it takes you a long time to kill the big ones, Bladed Armor and Butcher are very effective. Thing is, Bladed Armor, to my understanding, does not cap. So if you're fighting a 2,000 health golem, you're doing 20 extra DPS to it for the start of the game. And 2,000 health is on the low end. Right, like the white starts with 1,400, so you're doing, you know, let's say you're gonna smite it at 500, right? So you're doing, so it's between 1,400 and 500 health just the very first time it spawns. It goes up from there. You are averaging 10 DPS to that camp with Bladed Armor, which is fairly effective. It's fairly good. I think it's an underrated mastery point, actually. It can't steal your It cannot steal blue buff because it's % current health, so it's not a worry there. It's fairly effective. Again, attack speed can be good. Exposed weakness is good for tank junglers because you will generally hit a lot of things. Oppression is very good for someone like Nautilus. It's okay for Rammus. It's okay with, you know, with Taunt, with Powerball. I wouldn't get Second Wind unless you were actually a guy who's going to heal himself. I think the same for Perseverance at this point. I think, unless you're going to be low on health a lot of the time. Yeah. How good do you think armor quints are? Armor quints are very, very good. I actually went over them in my support runes. Can you explain how the small numbers you get from masteries and runes affect the game overall for newer players? Does it all have to do with early game? Yes and no. So I think generally speaking, you should try to focus on your early game with runes and masteries. Generally, you should. Because if I get 100 bonus health, at level 1, that's a very big deal. It's a significant jump in my durability. If I get 200 health at level 18, it helps, but it's not the same impact, right? Generally speaking, you want to focus on early game, unless there's nothing good in the slot. Like, my example is I'm fighting an all physical damage lane, and I am an 80 carry. There's nothing that I really, really care about in glyphs, so I might run magic resist per level because that mid lane LeBlanc is going to come looking for me at some point, and I want to have MR later in the game. That's when you get to say, you know what, I don't want to itemize for the lane here. I'll rune for the later game because I don't need to yet. Generally speaking. Yeah, that's basically the description here. Okay. Hey, Phreak, is flat armor worth running anymore? I think completely yes. I think it is still the rune of choice for the jungle. I'm going to bring up Crumbs again as a player that I profiled. He actually changed every single one of his rune pages to armor per level or health per level. I'm not sure that's optimal. You will still be able to get through the jungle fairly successfully. You don't typically run out of potions in your first few clears, and once you get to the point where you have Wriggles or Spirit Stone, you're probably fine in terms of health. But I think the comparative value of armor per level by end game is not... I don't know. I mean, I guess it is. It can be pretty high. I'll go back to the spreadsheet again to show you guys. Right, if I do armor per level, if I do flat armor at level 1, I'm getting, you know, a 7% durability bump. If I do flat armor at level 1, I get a 7% durability bump. That only falls to like a 5% durability bump, but it's still pretty good. If I do armor per level, I'm only 1% more durable early game, which means I'm basically not running runes at that point. I'm getting ultimately nothing for it. But if I'm... Well, actually, one thing to keep in mind is you're actually going to be level 2 immediately in the jungle because you're going to finish your camp so fast with a leash. But it means that you can't, like... It's much harder to, like, solo your buff with a leash, for example. You're going to run out of health a lot faster. If you want to open up with a potion and a ward, you're going to run out of health a lot faster, right? So I think it's risky. And armor per level is pretty good. You're getting like a 15-14% durability bump, which doesn't decay that hard. But it still leaves you open to getting bursted by mages and whatnot, and I'm unsold, kind of. Because I think it's hard to count on the fact that you're going to be really caring about... yeah, basically at the end of the day, what you have to think about is all that really matters is what my likely matchup is. I think they're fairly well balanced against each other. I think the runes that all got changed are balanced against each other, and I want you to think about which do I need more. Do I need, you know, less? Do I need to not get bursted, but I need efficient potions and life regen? Do I need to not get bursted and I don't care about my life regain? Do I just need health regen because I'm getting poked once in a while and I don't want to buy potions? Do I just want late game health because my lane is passive? Do I want late game durability to Zed because my lane is passive? These are all things you have to think about and consider as you set up your pages. And it's really up to you. In fact, if you really wanted, you could make a page that's just 3 of each one of them. Right? You could make a page that's like 3 armor seals, 3 armor per level, 3 health per level. Or you could do like 2 armor per level, 2 health per level, 1 health regen. Like, they're all good and they're all fairly effective. And, you know, everything kind of has diminishing returns. If you got some of everything, you wouldn't really be in that bad of shape. You just have some of everything in the seals. I think the seals are now remarkably well balanced amongst each other. And that's my general look on the seals. If you have any questions about what a typical page would look like, feel free to profile me. My summoner name is Phreak, P-H-R-E-A-K. I'm on North America. If you don't have an install for North America, you can look up like lolking.net and profile me from there. And you can look at my pages. They'll always be fairly up to date. It's the account I play on. You could also profile players like C9 Sneaky or Double Lift or C9 Alltech. And you could, you know, use them for another example. For example, I'll look up C9 Alltech. He's a good player. He's a challenger. He's like top 20. He played as of April 8th. He played a couple of Graves games today. And we'll see, you know, hey, let's look at the runes he used. He's actually deciding to opt out of armor in his matchup. Oh, this is really interesting. Okay, this is cool. So he's very focused on being durable, right? He's actually ditched lifesteal. Instead is running a bunch of health per level and some flat health and running just like some mana regen, right? Right. I mean, these are standard glyphs, right? Looks like 5 resist glyphs, 4 mana regen glyphs. He's still running an attack damage quint, which is fine. But his armor is coming from 2 quints now, and he's running a bunch of health and health per level. He's a very tanky Graves. And then running standard AD. That's kind of interesting. It's a different kind of look at it, right? Masteries, standard 21 offense. Of course, yep, you get Butcher and Feast. You get Spell Weaving, Blade Weaving. You see that he sacrifices points in Warlord because that's just the one that AD carries sacrifice. And the standard 9 defense, right? So, normal stuff there. Ironically, it has a page called Graves. It's not the same, but, you know, whatever. Again, I can look up C9 Sneaky. Match history, just played a Corki game a few days ago. Right? Again, he's also opting out of flat armor, doing armor per level. He's saying, I'm not going to take very much damage in my lane. I'd rather have the late game armor. Is using some attack speed, you can see. He's actually using 1 lifesteal, 1 attack speed, 1 AD. His Masteries, again, pretty similar, right? 20 on offense, 9 defense. Actually opts into getting exposed weakness and not double-edged swords. You can see that everyone has their own flavors to it. And opts out of dangerous game as well. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, so that's the basic generic thing. I'll answer, I guess, one more question. Someone asked what Diana jungle. Diana, I think, is a damage jungler. I would try very hard to just deal damage. So, hey, double-edged sword. The actual value of Fury is low because she already has bonus attack speed from her passive. But you'd be like, hey, Mental Force is good. Hey, Brute Force is good. Spell Weaving, Blade Weaving is good. Executioner is good. It's like, hey, now I have too many points. I also kind of care about Butcher and Feast. Okay, well, now what do I cut? I could cut Sorcery. I could cut Spell and Blade Weaving. Honestly, I don't do good basic attack damage. I don't care about Blade Weaving. Spell Weaving I'm going to do on my burst before I land basic attacks anyway, so I don't care about that either. If I'm jungle Diana, I'm probably actually going to be fairly tanky, so I'm going to probably ditch Arcane Blade. Well, maybe. I see it going both ways. I'm going to do something like this. Actually, I would probably just ditch Feast Butcher and use Exposed Weakness. This would be like probably what I do for jungle Diana, and then this is probably like what a jungle Diana page might look like. Is, hey, you know, I've got you know, early stats for clears because I'm going to be very auto attack based, and my burst against the camps are pretty low. So you can see for 4 points, I'm getting 4 attack damage, as well as, like, you know, some AD per level. As for 2 points, would be Butcher and Feast, which is 2 damage, and some regen, which is nice, but none of the AD per level. So you can see how, like, Brute Force Martial Mastery is actually pretty powerful, unless I really want the Feast to stain. I mean, I could spend 1 point and get Butcher, right? But the AD works in a lot more places. Shyvana top would be something like this kind of a start for Masteries. Probably not second win in Perseverance, though. I'd probably ditch these points. I could probably keep Perseverance, but I'd get like Legendary Guardian maybe. This is actually very good for Shyvana. I use basic attacks to increase my spell damage. If I went for Ruin King, I could use Blade Weaving if I wanted to go deeper down, but it would ditch points off of like Perseverance. Oh yeah, this is another example of where I think the player's being suboptimal. And you should get Enchanted Armor in that setup. But as far as runes goes, I think my favorite way to do Shyvana is actually hybrid pen marks. But otherwise, standard tanky stuff. It would be something like this, but I would run hybrid pen marks. I think that's generally pretty effective. Yeah, and that's going to be basically the rundown of Runes and Masteries. So I'm going to end that, and